Good morning and welcome to the February 7th, 2019 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda, there are speaker request forms to the left of the dais. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we would like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you have to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. The public hearing on item number 1, the approval of the January 24th, 2019 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes, is hereby opened.
Second.
Galen made the motion to approve the Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes, and Rachel seconded that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a variance request for the property located at the corner of Chambers Street and Twin Elms Drive. This item was continued from the January 24th Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting to allow the applicant to submit a revised site plan showing a removal of several accessory structures on the 3 proposed lots. The subject property is zoned medium-density residential district and is approximately 0.52 acres in size and is located in the Canyon Lake Overlay District. This is an aerial overview of the property, again noting the accessory structures of concern from the last meeting were here, 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 and over here. And those are going to show up on the revised site plan that the applicant has submitted. And just as a reminder, the applicant has submitted a preliminary subdivision plan for this property to split this existing parcel into 3 new proposed lots. As part of that, he is seeking multiple variance requests. Future land use for the property identifies it as urban neighborhood. And on the city's major street plan, both Chambers Street and Twin Elms Drive are local roads. This is the revised site plan that the applicant has submitted, and based on conversations at the January 24th Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting, the applicant and staff were working on the stipulation regarding fire sprinkler protection for the proposed structures. And the agreement that was discussed was if the accessory structures that are shown here in the hatch marks were removed, the stipulation that all residential structures on the property be fire sprinkler protected could be amended to just the new proposed duplex on Lot 3AR having fire sprinkler protection, while the existing structures on Lot 1AR and 2AR could remain unprotected. In conversations with the Rapid City Fire Department, that stipulation has been revised to include that any new renovation on the existing duplex for Lot 2AR would also require fire sprinkler protection, but that the existing structure on Lot 1AR, the single-family home, would not require any fire sprinkler protection with renovation. In addition, any new proposed structure on Lot 3AR would require the fire sprinkler protection. Specifically, because of those structures being removed, the variance requests for this application have been amended to include a variance request on Lot 1AR to reduce the front yard setback for the single-family structure from 25 feet to 5.5 feet, right here. Reduce the rear yard setback for a single-family structure from 25 feet to 7.53 feet on the rear yard here. Additionally, a reduction in the lot size for a single-family home on Lot 1AR from 6,500 square feet to 5,294.8 feet, and a reduction in the lot size requirement, minimum lot size requirement for Lot 2AR for a duplex from 8,000 square feet to 5,884.7 square feet. At this time, staff would recommend approval of the variance with the revised stipulation in coordination with the Rapid City Fire Department. Let's see. And I'll just go back through a few of the site photos. This is the property on the northwest corner looking back to the southeast. This is looking along Twin Elms Drive to the south, showing the existing duplex in the white. A view back to the west, looking along Chambers Street, showing a couple of the accessory structures and also the existing front yard setback on the single-family home. And this is a photo looking south on the border of proposed Lot 3AR and 1AR, showing a couple of those accessory structures that would be removed as part of this request. And finally, just showing the existing single-family home, the front yard, and the existing rear yard setback for proposed Lot 1AR. With that, staff would recommend approval of the variance requests as noted with the stipulations in the staff report revised based on conversations with the Rapid City Fire Department. And those stipulations of approval would be citing criteria number 2 and number 4 for the variance request. At this time, staff would be available for any questions. If you have any, I believe we also have the applicant and their consultant in the audience too.
Are there any questions for staff? I do have a few speaker requests on this. Karen?
Thank you, John. On that site plan, he didn't move the lot line, so he kept the lot line in the same spot. Could you put that site plan up there again? I just want to look at the house itself on 1AR. Is between that and the lot line is how many feet?
Between the new house, I guess it would be, are you talking on the side yard?
Yeah,
Here?
yeah.
I'd have to, I'm not entirely sure. It would be exceeding the side yard setback requirement. It would be
Okay.
somewhere in the
Okay,
30
so,
to 50 feet.
sorry, so the other lot line adjustment then is on the south side?
So the proposed subdivision is going to have this lot line here. That part has remained the same with the applicant's revised site plan.
Okay.
The accessory structures being removed here and here would reduce, or there would no longer be a need for a variance on those side yard setbacks for those structures.
Okay, so the two variances for the adjustment is the north side of the house to this,
Correct.
to that, and the other one is on which side of the house?
It would be for
Right
the
there?
rear yard setback.
Okay, on the south side, okay. Well, number one, I think removing those accessory structures will really improve the look of that neighborhood, and I think that's a wise choice to make. I would like to have seen the lot line moved over, because then it wouldn't have to get maybe the adjustment for the square footage, but, you know, that's kind of my comments. I still would like to have seen that, but, okay, thank you, John.
Eric?
Thank you. Last time that we met, we had a discussion about the congestion in terms of parking in the area. Can that be addressed again at this time, just to refresh my memory on how the parking is going to go?
Off-street parking for all the structures will be provided. I think the applicant indicated there's a driveway on this side for the existing single-family home that could support 2 vehicles, which would be the parking requirement. The duplex will have a driveway on this side and a driveway on that side for parking, and then any new construction on Lot 3AR would be required to provide that off-street parking of 2 spaces per dwelling unit, so it would be 4 off-street parking spaces for that new structure.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go to the speaker request forms now. Gene Cadis, if you could, when you come up, give your name and address into the microphone just for our records.
My name is Jean Cadis, and my address is 3728 Chambers Street. And my main concern is about the additional cars that would be in the area if a duplex were put up. For a multiple family structure like that, there will be more cars in the area than what there previously has been. And so that's my concern about whether there will be enough parking provided so that we're not glutting the streets with cars of the residents and visitors. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one, I hope I'm reading correctly, Mary Noble.
Yes, good morning. My name is Mary Noble. I own properties at 2021 Twin Elms Drive and also 2023 Twin Elms Drive. We have a lot of concerns for this area. With parking, I've been in touch with the Rapid City Police Department over it's been a good year. Ken, you as well. I think we have discussed a lot of this area over the last couple years. The street is only 20 feet wide. There are already a lot of rentals in this area that are not complying with the ordinances. Code enforcement, Matt and I have been in discussion for, oh boy, since Matt has come on board for code enforcement. Matt says he is just not gonna, he's just not gonna enforce the codes. We have a lot of ADA situations in that area that I have spoke with Ken about. His last response a few weeks ago was, well, we just live in a unique area and we're not going to really do anything. Everyone is parking on the streets. As a handicapped woman, I cannot use my sidewalks. I have an elderly father who lives in that area, almost adjacent from this property. He is not able to use the sidewalks with his wheelchair. The gentleman who is proposing all of this owns several other properties right next door. There's a brick home. There's the other one next to it. He owns basically that one side of Chambers Street. This morning, the rentals, the sidewalks are not shoveled. People are parked on the sidewalks. If there is Officer Scott, he is the supervisor for the west side of Rapid City. He has talked to them several times about not parking on the sidewalks. They're blocking the mailboxes. There's a lot of issues just in this little tiny area, and they want to add to what's going on. The brick house that is right next to this property that we are talking about today was a beautiful brick home. I've got pictures of this home before it became a rental. You should see this house now. It's really sad. I mean, we have to look at it every day. There's a daycare that's being run out of this house. Don't know if it's legal or not. I don't know. Just so many issues in this area. Just kitty corner from this property next to Stu. Stu was at the last meeting. I don't see Stu here. Gary is actually 2 doors over from this as well. There's another apartment complex. Nothing is handicapped. They're a mess. There's vehicles with no license plates. There's vehicles that haven't run in years. They're still there. So what code enforcement does is, here, buy a sticker, put it on the plate, we call it good. They're abandoned. They're broke. Can we get them out of the area? It is an overlay district. We fought really, really, really hard to become that Canyon Lake overlay district, to remain the medium residential that we have been. We've invested a lot of money into that area, the people who are homeowners. And now we have people coming in, buying up these properties that want to be slumlords. And I have pictures of this area before. Let's even go back a year. I've got pictures of all of these properties that were so nice, individually owned. Then these people see what's going on in the area and they do move out because nobody wants to do anything with code enforcement. They're just not going to enforce it. So they leave. The properties get bought up as rentals. And then you look at the picture a year later and it's like, wowee. They want, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make this a North Rapid. Ain't happening. I'm sorry. It's just, you got to see these pictures, people. I've gone to my aldermans, Laura, Barbara, whatever, Armstrong, I think she goes by now. She goes by Barbara for her practice. Armstrong Council, I'm not understanding that. But anyways, you call Laura. She does not return phone calls. The last text I got from her, she says, well, Mary, my family just says I'm too busy with city stuff. I'm just not able to. Okay. You call Darla Drew. She does not return phone calls. They pass it on to anybody else. It's just, there's so much in this area. I've talked to the fire department. They say there are issues in this area. The streets aren't wide enough for parking. And now you want to bring in more places where you're going to try to park on the street? You can't. I know I'm getting off topic here. I have a traumatic brain injury, by the way, so I'm sorry if I kind of ramble and get off topic. It's not me, it's the brain. I apologize. I guess there's other people that would like to talk here as well, but there's a lot of issues that need to be looked at before we think about putting variances. It is on the corner. How are you going to put it so close to the corner when you can't see around it? It's also a school zone. Children are having, because of the parking issues, children are having to walk in the streets on their way to school. They cannot use their sidewalks. I'm going to let somebody else talk because I just know other people. I have pictures. Ken, I would like to speak with you some more as well after this, because we just need to address a lot of things that seem to be getting pushed aside. Thank you for your time. I guess there's just so much in this neighborhood people aren't aware of. There is the property at 3242 Canyon Lake, that the same thing that had happened was nobody came to the meetings. They pushed it through. They wanted the variances. They pushed it through. You know, this whole property is not handicap accessible. How can you not be ADA accessible? You know, there's just a lot of handicap issues. Other apartment buildings that were pushed through after the Canyon Lake overlay, they are not handicap accessible. Right? I don't know how we keep pushing these properties through. We have the Canyon Lake Overlay District. There's a couple other things I want to touch on. I should have opened my book. Again, I apologize.
If you could, keep them to the property in question, if you got these other issues.
Okay, the letter that was sent through KTM, you know, a lot of people are throwing this out. They think it's junk mail. Why do we not put a city something on there so people know that it has something to do with the city? People just throw it out. Then they don't come to these meetings, and then you just push it through. I think that's kind of deceiving. Okay, where is the whole plan? The gentleman that bought these properties, okay, he owns these other rentals, and I think he's realizing that it's hard to rent these properties. He's got one on the corner of Elmhurst and Chambers that he's not able to rent. He's got a lot of money into it. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to rezone this area so he can just sell them all. We see it coming, okay? But that's not fair because he bought these properties not knowing what he's buying and what the overlay district is and everything. Now his problem becomes our problem? That's kind of, I don't understand it. There's a lot of setbacks that we're talking about here. We need to get into the fire and ambulance. People are parking on the street. I've got pictures of people parking on both sides of the street. The ambulance can't get through. You know, there is just so much here that people aren't understanding. You know, it's easy to push something through when you don't live there, I guess. I'm done, and I apologize for taking up so much of your time. I hope someone else is going to speak on our behalf in our neighborhood, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Noble. We've got Connie Thomas, who also wishes to speak.
Good morning, Connie Thomas, 2115 38th Street. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here. I have some questions about what is going to be happening to these properties after, if there is approval of the variances made. In reading through some of the stuff that was online through the city, that there's going to be a multi-story duplex. And I guess I question where that's going to be, how it's going to affect the lot lines, what are the neighbors going to see. The reason why I'm involved in this is not because I live as close as other people do. I live a little further away. But I, too, was involved in the Canyon Lake Overlay District, not as much as other people, but Karen Bowman, I remember her, was instrumental in helping get this passed. And one of the reasons is because, yes, we have quirky neighborhood, and we moved in and bought these properties knowing that. But we then started to experience large apartment buildings being built. And just very close to the lot lines, you would have a two-story apartment building. And through that, with the Canyon Lake Overlay District, we approved that because we felt that we were preserving our neighborhoods for the good of our community. So my question that I do have, Lot 3AR, what is the purpose of that lot? What are they going to do with it?
If I understand correctly, that would be where a future duplex could be located.
And that's where the variance is such a large variance request, but that's not part of this here today. When is that going to be, or has it been?
I'm not sure that that lot would require a variance request. The other two lots that are being created with existing buildings on them would be the ones that require variance.
Which lot are they going to put the other, there's going to be two-story ones?
I think there's an existing duplex on lot 2AR.
Right.
And
Is
there's
that
an-
going to remain?
That will remain.
Okay. And the other house is going to remain the same, they're not going to be building? So as far as a new one, it'll be the Lot 3AR?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Again, I do request that when variances are allowed like this, that we take them seriously, that we don't set a precedence for future development in our area. Nobody more than anyone wants to see good development in my neighborhood. I want to see the newer homes, and I want to see provisions for multifamily so that everyone can have the opportunity to live in our area. Like I say, it's a quirky neighborhood, but because we're next to Canyon Lake, we walk, we can do all these things that we enjoy in life. But I do want to remind everyone that the Canyon Lake Overlay District was put there for a reason, and we need to be careful of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. I also have a request from Jamie Fisher.
Morning. I'm Jamie Fisher. I live at 2012 Twin Elms Drive. If you look at the photos, the white duplex, I'm the house right next to it. I'm kind of going along with what everyone else has said here. My wife's lived there for about 5 years. We love the neighborhood because it's so close to everything. This summer we bike to Canyon Lake. We can bike anywhere. But the problem is all of the rentals around there, people coming and going, the congestion on the road is crazy. We have 2 dogs, we just had 2 kids, and we can't even, to walk them, which we walk every day, we have to walk in the road. So there's cars going by like crazy. We can't safely walk around our neighborhood. Like they were saying, the sidewalks are never shoveled, so you're walking through 6 inches of snow to get around. They're icy. As far as kind of what Karen was saying about the eastern property line, so you wouldn't have to have a variance for those 2 properties to be square footage wise. It looks like they're planning to tear down the properties that are on that, what is it, the 3AR, I believe. So if you're tearing them down and replacing something anyway, why do you need to push that property line further west when you can keep it further to the east and have those properties in compliance with the 6,500 square foot and 8,000 square footage for those lots. Just like I said, something to think about. And on top of that, like I said, we are the doesn't have a our property is the one on the very south side there. So if they do put a duplex, right now the duplex that's right next to us, lot 1AR, they already look down into our backyard and can see everything in our backyard, and we have a 6-foot privacy fence. So if you put another duplex on that 3AR, which from what I read is going to be a 2-story, that we're losing more of our privacy, which, like I said, we love the area, but I mean, the way things are going, we're not happy with the rentals and adding more rentals, and so that's kind of all I've got to say. So thanks, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. More questions or comments from the commission? Karen?
I just have one more question. Staff, when you met with the applicant or his designee, did the discussion of that lot line come up at all? Changing the lot line?
During our discussions, that was not something that the applicant proposed. The revised site plan was for the accessory structures to be removed and maintain as large of a building footprint as they could on the remaining Lot 3AR. So it was not something that was discussed in detail. I know we did discuss it at the last zoning board of adjustment meeting as well, but the revised site plan at the applicant's intent leaves those existing lot lines with the removal of the accessory structures.
Okay. I understand that. I guess, to me, it seems, looks like there's plenty of room to still put, fix that property on 3AR if you move that lot line over just a little bit, and you wouldn't have to have those other two variances, which to me seems to be cleaner than, at least it gives those other properties at least a little bit more room, and if they wanted to, something happened to the house or whatever, and they wanted to rebuild, they could rebuild it with the correct number of square footage, and it just, to me, seems that would be a lot cleaner. I know that this area, I've been out this area, and I know it's very congested, and unfortunately, for us to, as a Board of Adjustment, we can't look at the sidewalks that aren't clean and those kinds of things, and I apologize for that, because that is an issue. And I going out there and visiting friends out there, it's horrible to find a place to park if you want to come to visit somebody, because there's no place, and the streets are very narrow. So I understand the congestion and those kinds of things. For me, I just wish that the applicant would have at least discussed moving that lot line over and told us why. I'm sure it's because the more room you have, the chance of developing that property is easier. But that's my comments. That's what I wish they would have moved that over. So thanks.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Vicki.
So in our discussions with the applicant, we did visit about the fact that there is enough square footage that they could meet the minimum lot size requirement for all 3 lots. So on average, they're not creating densities for 2 duplexes and 1 single-family home beyond what the ordinance would require. There is a garage that sits kind of at the very southeast corner, and retaining a larger lot on 3AR allows for a duplex and then still access to that garage. Otherwise, you're building right in front of that garage. But Kevin is here today, and certainly I think it's worth hearing from him as to what his concession would be about trying to improve meeting the lot size requirements. I would also like to add that as a part of any of the renovation of these properties, the off-street parking must be met. So there needs to be 4 off-street parking spaces for the duplexes and 2 for the single-family homes. With the platting that's being proposed in conjunction to this, you will see sidewalks getting constructed along the 2 streets as they abut this property, and there will be an ADA ramp at the corner that will be constructed by the applicant as a part of this.
Thank you, Vicki. Rachel.
I think I've talked before about how much I love this neighborhood. We live nearby. We live actually just across the street, Canyon Lake Drive. And we come and walk in this area all the time in the summer. And so, I understand what you're saying in terms of, walking in the streets, because that's where we walk. We walk in the streets. It's really hard to actually walk on the sidewalk. I think, as Karen said, though, unfortunately, we can't really do much about that as a planning commission. We can't, we can't enforce people shoveling their walk or parking in the streets or, parking over the sidewalk. That's one of my big pet peeves, because that's for people to walk and for people to be safe. And unfortunately, I don't think we can do anything about that. I think what we have to look at is, are they meeting the codes, and are we adjusting for the codes in a way that makes sense for the neighborhood? And honestly, so many of those homes are on smaller lots. If people were renovating their homes, they might have to get more exceptions anyway, just because so many of those homes are actually out of compliance, and that is part of the neighborhood. And so I think staff has done a really good job of trying to bring down the number of exceptions on these properties. And I hate to see more rentals, but people who can't buy, they need to rent something and they need to be somewhere, you know? So I think at the end of the day, we're going to see more parking on this lot simply because, you know, you look too at that garage, how far set back that is. If you're driving up to that garage, you know, I think people are going to be parking more on the lot and less on the street. And the other two properties aren't adding any additional, you know, people who aren't there already. And so while I think those concerns are extremely valid, I just don't see that these properties are going to add to those concerns. I don't think it's going to increase any of the problems that you're currently seeing. And so I'm in support of this simply because, you know, based on everything that I've heard so far, I think, you know, this is as good of a compromise as we can come to.
Any further questions, comments from the Planning Commission on this one? Look for a motion then. Is there someone ready for make a motion on this? Motion to approve. That was criteria 2 and 4, if I have it right. Is that right, Vince? Okay. Vince made the motion to approve the variance for the, let's see here, I'm trying to find my spot. To reduce the front yard setback for lot 1AR from 25 feet to 5.5 feet, to reduce the rear yard setback for a single family resident from 25 feet to 7.53 feet, reduce the minimum lot size for a single family residence from 6,500 square feet to 5,294.8 for lot, and for lot 2A to reduce the minimum lot size for a duplex from 8,000 to 5,888.7 square feet. Is there a second for that motion? Rachel seconded that motion. And Karen, discussion on that?
Thank you. I guess for me to be able to vote for this, I would like to hear from the applicant and have him explain why the need for not moving that lot line over and how that would fit. You know, you mentioned that the house would be so close to the garage. I just want to make sure that there's enough room for the parking for the cars, and I'm sure that maybe they haven't shown exactly how it's going to lay out there, but I'd like to hear from them anyway and see.
Mr. Andreessen, would you be willing to speak to that?
Good morning. My name is Kevin Andreessen. I am the property owner requesting the proposed changes. In terms of the you know, I guess in terms of some of the concessions we made in terms of agreeing to, and the additional costs of tearing down the structures, I guess what we're trying to balance out in this development is trying to have a wide enough opening on that lot to accommodate a 2-car garage. So that was what we were looking at with this duplex. So if you look at what's remaining in that lot, you're about 80 feet on a single story with an 8-foot side setback. We've got about a 64-foot building envelope. So that's kind of the process we've been going down to see if we can get a split level to fit on there. Hearing some of the concerns from the prior meeting, I'm not committing to that, but that's what we're trying to accomplish. And I think when we went back and, you know, agreed to tear down these accessory structures, what we were trying to do is maintain a width that would allow us to, you know, fit on that and to get the parking onto the lot, you know, which is some of the concern I've heard here today. And then as we kind of look at the overall square footage in the neighborhood, as you kind of look at the balance of the entire property together, we have some fairly significant front yards on these properties, which obviously, if we were able to pull those forward, but they're existing structures, you know, it'd be easier to move that back lot line. A couple points of comment that were made here that I would like to go on the record and correct. I do not own that property on the corner that was basically lifted off its foundation and completely renovated. That is owned by a different owner. And this neighborhood has been rentals for probably over 10 years, not under my ownership. But there have been substantial improvements made in this neighborhood, including putting sidewalks in, which we're also proposing in this development to add sidewalks. And as the owner of the existing properties, I will take note here and follow up with those tenants to make sure we have it in our leases that they are to maintain their sidewalks and make sure they're cleaning and not parking on them, and I will follow up on that. So I heard those comments loud and clear, so we'll get that addressed.
Okay, thank you. I'm just making sure that the existing garage that's there, that's the two-car garage that you're going to keep, is that correct?
It's a one-car back
The
there.
one
yeah.
car?
Yeah.
So where are you going to, you're going to leave that there? And
Correct.
you're going to add another garage, or are you just going to,
It'll be built into the structure. So if you look at basically, a layout, we would look at, something that would go across the property like this. Oops, it's not working. Looking at those 8-foot side setbacks and basically having two garages facing the street that the person could drive into, park, and then go inside the property.
okay, so then what are you going to do with the existing garage that's a one car? Are you going to be able to park in there too?
I don't think it'll be regularly used, but it's there. I mean, I don't have a plan done yet, so I don't really have a use for that plan, to be honest with you. So,
Okay. Well, I guess for me, I'm just looking at it from a point of, you've got a huge lot there for 3AR, and there's a way that you can work it so that you can still move that lot line over and make it useful. That's what I'm looking at. I mean, if you took that existing garage out of there, you'd have a huge backyard back there. And I'm not a developer, so I'm not going to try to make you.
at this point, that would become impractical from a cost standpoint. I mean, it's a sound structure that's back there. It's not practical really to tear it down from a. I'm going to incur a lot of additional cost to clean this lot up. I'm cutting a 120-foot tree down, cleaning up these accessory structures, really trying to improve the neighborhood. I don't have in my plans to tear that structure down.
Okay. Thank you. And I understand
Yep.
what you're trying to do, but thanks.
Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Vicki?
since the applicant has brought to everyone's attention that he would be adding on attached garages and maintain the detached garage, we would just like to put it in record that he be made aware that it may require a conditional use permit for an oversized garage area on that property if it exceeds the accumulative total of 1,500 square feet or 30% of the gross floor area of the residence, whichever is greater. So we may be seeing that one back here in this meeting if he did put on detached garages.
Thank you, Vicki. Galen, more discussion on the motion?
Sure, thanks. So it's hard for me to support this motion, this project. I'm just looking at the different criteria of how we have to approve these variances, and we're not denying reasonable use of the land that's currently existing as two lots that are developed. There's really nothing special, in terms of topography, narrowness. It's not the minimum adjustment necessary for reasonable use. There's already reasonable use, and it's not really it would actually be injurious to the neighborhood when we talk about how crowded this neighborhood is, and we're going to be adding more cars, more people. So I just don't like the idea of adding more people into this neighborhood. So that's kind of why I'm not going to support it. If it was just to make the lot lines, so they could maybe redevelop the existing house, but when we talk about giving the adjustment to reduce that lot for that duplex, I just can't find a reason to allow it. So that's my thoughts on this, and I'll be voting no against it.
Thanks, Galen. Rachel?
I think Karen actually brought up a really good point. I was under the impression that that existing garage was going to actually be used as the garage instead of, it just being a structure out in the back that's not going to be used. So, I think this is what we're really struggling with is that we want to see these lots cleaned up. We want to see this area beautified. But at the same time, if, you know, we're talking about something completely different, you know, if they're going to add the increased density from, you know, garages, and then I imagine townhomes like on top of the garages, that's really not what I anticipated was going on in 3AR. At the same time, they are removing a bunch of buildings, and I don't know what the balance sheet looks like in terms of if it's possible to clean up these lots without having an investment like duplexes in there. So I think that's what we're all struggling with right now.
Eric?
I just have too many questions to support this proposal. It seems like that both times that we have come together for this, new information has been reported each and every time at the meetings, and to me, there's just too much confusion as to ultimately what will happen with Lot 3AR. And I'm with Karen that something could be done about moving that lot line to some degree, but then again, we're sitting here talking about moving a line a few feet certain directions and talking about garages that I just didn't have any idea that that was going to be a part of it. So there's too many questions in my mind to on this request for variances to support this particular proposal.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve these variances. If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to a vote on this. The motion is to approve. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Let's do a roll call, Andrea.
Ron,
Yes.
Bowman, Caesar, Gallagher, Herr, Hogestrat, Ottenbacher, Vidal. I have 3 to 5. Motion fails.
So the variance fails, 3 to 5. Any further items on zoning board of adjustment? I'd look for a motion to adjourn zoning board of adjustment then. All right. Mike made the motion and Karen seconded. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We'll now move to the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for February 7th, 2019. Again, if anybody wishes to speak to an item on the Planning Commission agenda, please fill out a speaker request form and hand it to the staff along the left wall. Consent calendar. Items 1 through 4 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the City Council. The City Council will make the final decision with the exception of the following items. Item 3, 19 PD 002. The Rapid City Planning Commission's action on this item is final unless any party appeals that decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 4 that staff would like to remove? Any items 1 through 4 that the Planning Commission would like to remove? And are there any items 1 through 4 that any audience member would like to remove?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Over here.
Wait.
I'd like to remove number 4.
4?
I'd like to ask you to continue that for a month. I'm going to actually bring another ordinance for Title 16 that's going to do the same thing, so we'd like to do that together.
All right. Well, would there then be a motion to approve items 1 through 3 per staff recommendations? All right, Karen made the motion this time, and Mike seconded it. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4. What would be a month away date for a planning commission meeting? March 7th? 8th? Would there be a motion to continue this till March 7th? All right, Eric made the motion, and Rachel seconded the motion.
Okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5.
Morning. Item number 5 is 19 PD 001, a major amendment to a plan development to allow an LED message sign. Property is the new Med 5 credit union being built on the corner of Parkview Drive and 5th Street. In January and February of 2018, we saw a rezoning request from low-density residential district to general commercial district, which was approved in conjunction with a final plan development to allow a bank with a coffee shop and drive-throughs. So you can see the zoning to the north. Part of the concern was that zoning to the north is low-density residential district, and we've got some single-family residential along that north side. Through the stipulations of approval, screening fence and landscaping buffer were required. Just to give you some history on that. Aerial view, there is a building on there now, but we also have an office building to the west. And there you can see the backyards of single family to the north. Future land use reflects the previous zoning, which was low density neighborhood, but we see some mixed use commercial and employment along 5th Street. And again, 5th Street's an arterial street and Parkview Drive is a collector street, so it made sense at the time to rezone this since it is such a heavily trafficked corridor or intersection to general commercial, but specifically for, as the final plan development approved, a bank and a coffee shop with a drive-through. The applicant is requesting an LED message sign which will be located on the southeast corner of the lot. The Planning Commission has directed staff to bring any LED message signs in a plan development or conditional use permit before the Planning Commission for review and approval. The maximum allowed height is 45 feet for a pole sign on a general commercial lot, and the maximum message board sign would be 60 square feet. The applicant is proposing a 30-foot height and a 4x10 or 40 square foot LED message board sign. The applicant has also indicated there's a ground sign which will be located at the entrance along Parkview Drive on that northeast side. Applicant's site plan basically showing where that pole sign will be located. And then a rendering of the sign, which will have these two signs will be static. They're not the LED signs. The one in the middle, which is 4 feet by 10 feet, will be the one that is an electronic message board sign. And then we see the height at 30 feet and the clearance at 15. And then the other sign, which will be located along the entrance along Parkview Drive. And then renderings of the building, showing some of the building signage that will go up. And here's pictures from Tuesday looking into the site. Sign is posted on the property, buildings going up. Office building to the northwest along 5th Street. And then this is looking across Parkview Drive towards the southeast. And then looking along 5th Street down south towards the intersection with Catron and some of the commercial development in that area. Looking directly across the street to the backside of the extra strip mall that's associated with Walmart, and then looking north along 5th Street. This is standing in basic location of where that pole sign is located, just to show you that there are at least 2 single-family dwellings which would be able to see the pole sign located on the property that were built in that area. This is a picture, the thought being if they were able to move the sign to somewhere between the 5th Street and the building so that the building provided a buffer, there would still be a couple of houses between the 2 commercial buildings which would have the sign visible to them, as well as, again, still one of the houses on that north side would be, the sign would be visible. They do sit higher than the subject property, and so having 15 feet or 30-foot elevation might be looking right into their, they could probably see it out their back windows or backyard. Something to consider. These are some of the applicant's photos addressing, again, showing basically from the location which houses it would be visible from. And then what the applicant has indicated is that since the sign will be, the purpose of the sign is to advertise for traffic along 5th Street, that it would be shining in these directions and not towards the backyards of those single-family dwellings. So if, again, the proposed sign and all the signage is in compliance with the sign code for the general commercial district, they are proposing a 30-foot height when the maximum is 45, and the sign area is 40 feet, maximum would be 60 feet. If the Planning Commission determines that the sign location and size is appropriate, then staff would recommend that the major amendment be approved with the stipulations noted in the staff report. Are there any questions for staff at this time?
Karen?
I keep talking. My question is, how tall is the building itself? Is that over 30 feet? The bank building?
The bank is 2 stories and approximately 33 feet in height.
Okay, so it would be not any higher than that bank building.
It would not. No.
You know, I've opposed a lot of signs, and I understand the need for signs. Excuse me. I would like to have seen it a little bit lower, and I don't know that if the applicant's willing to lower it any, but just, if you're driving down the street on 5th Street and you need to see that sign, and I understand that, and I think the sign is, I don't disapprove of the sign itself. It's just the height, I think, for me, that I always worry about how it affects the neighborhoods and what's going on and stuff. So that's my only comment. I just was curious. Thanks.
Eric?
Thank you. I'm not a big proponent of LED signs in and around the town, because I think it's, in a lot of cases, they're distracting. In this situation, we're talking about 40 square feet. Is there a way of lowering the intensity of the LED lights, like at nighttime when it might be a little bit more obtrusive or bothersome to the patient or to the people around there? Or, and also, is it going to be an animated kind of sign? One that has a lot of fluid movement and rapid changing colors, those kind of things. Those would definitely impact with the neighbors to the back. And I see that the fence really doesn't come up high enough really to obstruct that sign from the people who live just on the other side. So I'm kind of with Karen that if we can lower that, that might be kind of helpful.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Vicki.
So our sign code is quite extensive in how electronic reader board signs must be designed, and you may recognize, or maybe it will bring it to your attention. You're right, when they first came to town, they were like little movie screens, and they would flash and do beacons, and that is not allowed. They have to be stationary. They can scroll, but there can't be that motion on it that would grab the attention of a motorist and divert their attention from the street for too long of a time. There's also a requirement that as the night sky gets darker, they have a sensor on them, and then the illumination lessens so that it equates. Otherwise, we have a very bright LED sign into the night sky. And we have seen that the technology is there to successfully do that. When we do get complaints on those, then we do have a code enforcement division that takes a look at it, and sometimes those property owners get a phone call. But for the most part, they have been subdued greatly in how they're operated from when they originally came to town.
Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand also that there's a gas station across the street and Arby's, and they both have signs and pole signs up there as well. And I know our code enforcements don't allow these blinking signs or these distracting signs. Plus this one, I want to make sure. We're talking about it's 15 feet off the ground, and then there's the static sign, and then there's the LED sign, which isn't even at the top of the pole. It's in the middle of the pole of the two static signs. How high is that, or where is that sign comparatively?
Based on this, it would start at 20 feet, and then it's 4 feet high. So
yeah, so
20
it's
and 24 feet.
24 feet would be the top, and even so, there's a border around that, so not even the LED sign is maybe 23.5 feet off of the ground. So it's not actually, and if it's facing, if it's almost parallel to Parkview as opposed to parallel to Fifth Street, it's not facing the homes on any side of that building. Am I correct?
Yeah, based on the applicant's rendering, it'd be facing towards either direction on Fifth Street. So the yellow lights showing where it would be shining.
So, and a question again, do you know anything about that gas station and the restaurant that does have pole signs, or are there any LED signs involved with those? Because don't the gas prices, aren't they LED?
I believe there are some at least on the gas station sign.
Okay. Because again, we're just talking about doing the same for, doing the same for this business that we've done for the business across the street. So I just want to make clear where those points were. So thanks.
All right, I also have a speaker request for him from Carla, and apologize on the last name, Brudico. But please correct me and give your address once you're up there.
Carla Brudico, and it's 4833 South Point. I wrote a comment ahead of time, and I've been notified that it went into the record, but I don't know if everyone read it. And the gentleman brought up a couple questions. He explained it very well. Our concern, my daughter is the house directly behind the building that's being built. And we are another 4 doors up, so we're behind the Mandalay office building. And I will say that when we heard, we always knew something would go in there, but when we heard at the first meeting we went to that it would be a Med 5 credit union, we were kind of relieved because we thought, oh no, not a gas station or a mini mart. So that was good, but at no time was there a mention of any of the signage. So now that we read that it would be an LED sign, I think some of the questions were asked by Mr. Vidal and answered to our satisfaction, I think, that about the lighting and the intensity and so forth, and the height. That was the one thing. I know what I want to clarify is if the sign is paralleling, is it facing Fifth, or is it, well, I can't quite figure this out. If the front of the sign is on Fifth and the back faces the building, that's one thing. But if it's facing Fifth, like this, it's not.
Mr. Chair, if we could have Fletcher put
Yeah,
that
Fletcher,
back up.
would be great.
So it would be perpendicular to
Okay.
Fifth with the light shining
Okay. So,
to advertise along Fifth Street.
Okay, so I think that's probably better. If you could show me the one with the houses behind, showing the Mandalay building, which is this building, the houses behind that. Keep going. Stop. Okay. This, oh, okay. That is our home. And we're quite elevated, as you can see. And that is our back deck that we use, obviously, in good weather. So in discussion in the middle of this, we were talking about this, and I think we don't have a lot of objections at this time. I think our questions got answered. I just needed to clarify that. And if we look straight off of our dining room to that, through that deck and out, we'll probably just see the reflection and not the actual sign. So, and then our daughter and her family will probably not be bothered by it either. And so we were just, they have young children, and we were just worried about the nighttime business. So I think my questions got answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Again, this picture was taken to, if the sign were to be moved so that it was between Fifth Street and the building, then it would be visible from these houses. This was just a what-if picture, not where it's being proposed, so it wouldn't be visible from these backyards.
John?
Fletcher, can you put the lot, showing the traffic and the one with the sign, I think you just had up there? Where's the access and egress for traffic?
It would be off of Parkview on that, this area of the property. They don't have an approach on Fifth Street.
So everything has to circle around the whole project and come back out?
Because the drive-throughs would operate through here and out.
Okay.
Vince?
Thank you. One last question about that property. From what I understand, weren't they supposed to put some kind of natural barrier between that bank and coffee shop, such as trees at some point? Or were the trees to be on the Fifth Street side?
The stipulation of approval from the final plan development, which is also in this major amendment, is that a 6-foot-high opaque screening fence shall continually be provided along the north property line. In addition, the proposed landscaping screen shall be continually maintained and replaced when necessary. So I believe there are already some existing 6-foot fences in the backyards of the single family, but they are putting in that buffer of landscaping that was required.
All right. Is there a motion on this one, or further questions or comments?
Motion to approve with staff stipulations.
All right, Rachel made the motion, and Vince seconded that motion to approve this item with staff stipulations. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Any discussion items or staff items today?
Yes. So we have scheduled on February 22nd a work session to talk about ADUs, or accessory dwelling units. We will be sending out another announcement to you on that. So again, it is a joint work session with the City Council. As you're aware, we've been working on this accessory dwelling units issue for quite some time. We would like to tie that up and bring it forward as a proposal for approval soon. So look forward to that. And what was the other one?
And then just we'll be sending out.
Oh, yes. Okay. We'll be sending out, if you haven't already received, you will soon receive a request to participate in a survey on SurveyMonkey. It's just to help us determine better where the issues are that we're dealing with on this particular item. So. Thank you. Oh, and thank you all those who were able to participate yesterday in Coffee with Planners. It was a successful event, and we look forward to continuing that quarterly.
All right. Any planning commission items before adjourning? All right. Rachel made the motion to adjourn. Second. And Eric seconded that. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.